Welcome everybody to another video here at Prof. Paul B. Today we'll be looking at doing some Git operations within the NetBeans IDE, and we will also be looking at GitHub. So we'll be doing a few things, creating repos, doing some changes, committing, viewing the repo browser, pushing our changes, creating branches, and all that kind of fun stuff. Let's go ahead and let's look at the application, a very simple one. There's a previous video that we created this, a very simple application where, so here is our student class, very, very simple class. It has one property or data field, name, and one argument constructor, getters and setters. And we also have our student list.java that creates an array basically of students and populates that array of length 2. And then we simply print it out using a for each loop. Okay, so let's go ahead and first thing we're going to do is we want to create a repo. Let's go ahead and create a Git repo. So I'm going to click on the project. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to versioning, initialize Git repository. And I'm going to accept the default. It actually will create a hidden folder within the project folder that will essentially be our Git repo. And there we go. And if we take a look, I'll just show you quickly. There's the project folder, and it created this Git repo, it created the Git repo, which is a hidden folder right there. And if we look at our project, we see a couple things. First of all, we see all the zeros here. And if you can't see that, if you can't see this, there's actually a setting if you go to View and Show Versioning Labels. Okay, so if you can't see those labels, there's just a setting in the view. So let's go ahead, let's go back here, and we notice that student and student list are both green, and they have the /a for being added, but they're not yet committed. Well, let's just take a look at what this application does. And so I'm just going to enter a couple of Gomorrah and Thor. And that's all it does. Very, very simple. So now let's go ahead, and we created the repo. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to commit these changes. And let's just take a quick look here at our diagram. And here's the working tree. Currently what we see here is this is the working tree, these files that we actually, we just added to our, we actually added it to the staging area. When we created it, NetBeans did this add for us. That's why we see that they're add. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do a commit. And when we do the commit, it's going to commit it to that to the local repo. And then later we're going to take a look at doing a push. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at. But before we do this, I do want to we're going to actually create a git ignore file, which is actually quite important to specify files that we do not want to be versioned. So let me just do git ignore.io. I know it redirects now, but so I'm actually going to put in here, I want it for NetBeans. And with this dot, we click on create, and I'm not sure why my is so big. Let's make this a little bit smaller. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this. So this is going to basically tells Git not to version or not to store any of the files in the build, nb build, dist, nb dist, and nb gradle folders. Okay, so we don't want that in our repo. So let's go ahead and I'm going to copy that. And here I'm going to actually select, and the git ignore should be at the same level as the .git folder itself. So I'm actually going to click on the project. I'm going to do file, new file, and the type will be other, and the empty file we're going to do. And we're going to, this name is very important, .git ignore. And I'm going to click on finish. NetBeans actually creates one for you. If you forget, it doesn't have exactly all that stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to save. Okay, notice that git ignore is not in the package. That git ignore is at the file level, at the folder level itself of the project. So so here's my project. Remember we saw the .git. This is the local repo. That's where Git stores all the local repo stuff. And here is that .git ignore that we just created. So it's at the project level. It's not within a package. Okay, that's why we can't see it there. So now with that git ignore, and I'm going to close it. Now what we can do is we can actually commit. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to Git, and I'm actually going to go to commit. Okay, and here, that's the one thing with the NetBeans that always remembers your previous one. So I'm just going to write down first commit. Okay, and I'm going to commit this. And so now we notice that so now we see that we're on the master branch, and student lists are no longer marked as being added. Okay. And what we can do now as well is if we go to team, you can actually use different menu items to get the same thing basically. If I go to team and I go to repository browser, if we open this up, we see here, this is our repo, and we can take a look at the branches. We see the local branches, we have the master, but we don't have anything set up for the remote yet. We're going to see that. We're going to see that in a bit. So, and if we take a look at the student list, you'll notice we also have this history view here as well. And if you click here, you actually see the revisions that happened. And we see that our first commit was done. And yeah, so we haven't really changed anything. So that's why there's not too much to see here now. But let's go ahead and do a change. On the student list, I'm actually going to, I'm going to increase the array size from 2 to 3. Very simple change. You'll notice one thing is that here, the color coding in the IDE is telling us that there was a change. And we also see now that I saved it, we see that student list.java is now blue, indicating that it was modified, and we have a /m to indicate that it was modified. And so now what we can do is we can actually do a commit. So I'm going to actually, let me just do a little bit more here. I'm going to add a comment, change the array size. Okay, change array size to 3, and go ahead and save that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to commit. I could actually click here, git and commit. I could click there on the project itself, or you could also commit individual files. So you could go here, commit, and oh, it's almost off the screen. And we could click here on commit, and notice here it's just showing up that one file. That's the only file that was modified. But we can also do it here at the project level, and let's go ahead and commit. And again, there's just that one file. And now I'm going to change this message to change the array to 3. Okay, and let's go ahead and commit. And now we see that the IDE just takes a little bit of time. So we see that we're still on the master branch, and we see that the student list is now, it's not blue anymore, is not modified because it has been committed. And if we take a look at the repository browser, we can see there's our master branch. And again, if we just double click on here, we can see information on the master branch, the latest commit, change the array to 3. And if we go to our student list.java and view the history, we can actually see that there's our first commit, and we see what happened. And this is the current file, and this represents the first commit. So let me just close this up a little bit. So we see that the first commit has it as 2, but our current file has that comment and has the array size of 3. And we see that here we see that the local change. This is a change that we did before the commit. And then we see here, this one is the commit. Okay. And this commit basically is what our working tree is in sync right now with the master. So that's why there's no changes, no visible changes. Okay. So we did that. And now I want to show you how we can actually revert commit. So now let's say, oops, you know what? I put it to 3, but it really should be back at 2. So how we can actually do this is we right click on the project, we do git, and it's not there. Let's try it from here. Let's see, we do revert recover, and we'll do a revert commit. And we're just going to leave everything as is, and we're going to revert the changes. And here I'm just going to putting it back to 3, putting it back to 2, put the array back, put the array back at 2. Okay, let's go ahead and do that and click on revert. And you'll notice right away that everything happened very quickly. That comment is gone. And we see that our student now, the student's array now has 2 elements. We actually went back to the way it was. And if we take a look, so if we take a look here now at our history, now we see that we have a new commit that actually put the array back at 2. But we still have, so this, for example, if you're working on something and it didn't work out, you can actually keep that just in case you had some great ideas while you were on that wrong path. In case you want to recover some of them, you can actually do that. Okay, you can actually see that right here. Okay. So now we did that. We showed the reverting. Now what I'd like to show you is actually creating a repo on GitHub and pushing this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a repo. I'm going to go to my repos here, and I'm going to call this one student list. Click on new, student list, and it is available. I'm actually going to make this private, and I'm going to create the repository. So now the repository is here on GitHub. I'm actually going, it's an empty repository. I'm going to click on the copy icon here, and I'm going to go to my NetBeans project, and I'm going to go to team, remote, and push. And here's where you're going to need the credentials that you signed up using GitHub. And I will actually replace this with my student list. And let's go ahead and click next. And if you're watching this in August 2021 or later, this will not work because Git is starting to use two-factor authorization starting at that date. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And it is connecting to the remote repo. It's connecting to GitHub. And we're going to select our master branch. We're going to click on next. And now we're going to click on finish. And you will get a pop-up. And here's the pop-up. It says, do we want to set up the branch master to track the remote? And yes, we do. We're going to click on yes, and I'll show you exactly what that does. So now if we go to our GitHub and we refresh, and we refresh, what we see is we see that our commit, we have 3 commits. So we have our first commit, and we have our put array back to 2 at 2 commit. And if we take a look here, we can see the 3 commits that we have. Okay, the first one, we change the array to 3, and we change it back to 2. Okay, and let's go back here. Now, if we take a look at our repo browser, we go here and repository browser. Now we can see that we have the master branch here, and we have original master here as well. And so this is, now we're actually tracking the remote. And if we do a fetch, the fetch, what the fetch will do is that it will bring the information, the repo of the origin, GitHub, it will bring it here into this branch, but it will not overwrite our working tree if we do a fetch. If we do a pull, on the other hand, it will do both. It will bring it here, and it will also overwrite our working tree and basically does it in one step. And I did have that diagram here. Recall if we do a pull, it puts it in the local repo, which is right there and remote, and then it actually brings it to the working tree as well. However, if we do a fetch, it will simply bring it to the local repo here, and then we'll be able to take a look at it, and we can then do the merge. Okay, so I'll actually show you how to do that. I'll show you how to do that right now. So let's go ahead here on the GitHub, and let me go ahead here and add something. I will go to the student.java class, and I'm going to modify it. So here's the student.java, and notice here the icon. We can edit the file, and let me close these up. There we go. So we can open up the file, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a date. Okay, so I'm going to add, I want to stop May, it's January 2021. Okay, so I just modified that, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come down here, and here's where we can actually commit it, and I'm going to say added the date. So I'm doing very minor changes, but really it's just to show you how it works, right? So here we added the date, and we're going to commit directly to the master. This is my information, so let's go ahead and commit changes. And let's go ahead and refresh. Oh, no, let's just go here. Sorry. And now we see there's 4 commits. And we see here the added the date commit. Okay. So now let's go ahead into our NetBeans. And so now basically the remote repo is ahead of our local repo by one commit. We don't see that yet because NetBeans is not it's not polling, the GitHub server. But what we can do is we can actually come here to our. Oh, let me make sure that there we go. So let's go to team, and now we're going to go to remote. And now we could do pull. Again, pull would do everything in one fell swoop, but I'm going to show you that kind of a safer way to do it. We can actually take a look at what the differences are. So let's go ahead and do a fetch. And yes, we're going to click on next. And that is the branch we want to fetch. We're going to take a look at creating up branches too in a sec. So now we see that the couple things to look at here. First of all, we see here that our student list, our project, the local repo is behind the remote repo by 1 commit. We did a fetch, so we didn't do a pull, but now let's take a look at what the differences are. And if we go here, if we go to diff and diff to tracked, that's, remember when we said yes, we want to track, and now it's in our remote. And if we say yes to track, then we can see the difference. We can see like student.java got modified, and here's the, here is the changes. If there were more changes, you would actually see that there are more changes here. And if there's more than one file, the files would be listed up here as well, and you'd be able to just double click on a file to see the change. And also you can see the textual change, and the textual change shows up as well. This line was deleted. No, sorry. Yeah, this represents what we have on our working tree, so that we see that this line is not there, but this line is there. Okay, so just kind of a different way of looking at it. And there's also the graphical. And here's where we see that our head, this is our local, and this is our origin master. So if we're happy with that, we can actually merge the branch that is we can actually merge this branch onto our master. So, and I want you to notice too, the master's in bold. That means that that's the branch that we're currently working on. So right now our working tree has the master branch. Now I can right click here on the origin and I can merge revision. And when I do that, here's my merge revision. I am going to do the fast forward if possible. I know it will be possible. There's just one minor change. And I'm going to go ahead and merge. And now notice here it says we're in sync with the master. And it also says here that we're in sync. And if we take a look at our student class, we see that we do have the date now. Okay. Now let's go ahead and create a branch, a local branch. So for example, if you're working on a project and there is a bug, somebody found a bug on the project, but it's currently live, you don't want to be don't necessarily want to be modifying the master branch. Typically, what you would do is you would actually create a branch to, let's say, fix the bug or an enhancement. Actually, we're going to do an example of an enhancement. So you'd actually create a branch that you will work on during that enhancement period. And when you're happy with it, then you can actually merge the branch back into the master. But we're just going to take a look at creating a branch for now. So I'm going to go to team and we're going to do branch tag, and we're actually going to create branch. And we're going to call this one part-time student. And our revision we're going to create it off of the master. And this, we're going to leave this because that's where we're creating it off of. And let's go ahead and create it. And you'll notice that we go to our repo browser. You'll notice that the part-time student branch is actually in bold. That's because that's the branch that we're currently on. When you create a branch in NetBeans, that Git will automatically you'll automatically be on the branch you just created. Let's go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new class, a Java class, and I'm just going to call this part-time student. We're not going to do too much with this, but just for fun. Part-time student. Let's go ahead and finish. And let's take away this. There's a way to take this away in the template, and I should do that very soon. So let's go ahead and here's our public class, part-time student, and let's go ahead and extend student. The part-time student is a student. So here's a part-time student. So one field that we could add would be, let's say, the number of courses. Let's go ahead and do that. Private int num courses. There we go. And let's go ahead. We're getting an error because we don't have a constructor, but let's go ahead and create our constructor. Get the ID to help us out with that. And let's go ahead and I could have put a 2-argument constructor. That's what I prefer doing that. So sorry about that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to right click and I'm going to do insert code and constructor. And we're going to add this one. It knows to add the superclasses one as well. And we're also going to add getters and setters for fun. Insert code and getters and setters for that num courses. There we go. Okay, so here's our part-time student and part-time student class. And there we go. Yeah. So I'm going to remove some of these extra lines. And we'll see, once we save this, notice we see that it's been added. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to commit this. We're going to commit to the branch. And let's go ahead and go our team and our commit. And here we have to change this. We're going to change this to added part-time student. And we see it here, and let's go ahead and commit. And I want to show you something that's kind of cool, is that once you got that commit, we'll push it to GitHub in a sec, but if we take a look at our repo browser, let's see, where did it go? There it is. So notice we're on the part-time student branch right now, and we have our part-time student class here. But if you double click, no, sorry, not double click, but if you actually go here and check out revision, so that means you want to check out that branch, you want to go on the master branch. Let's say you're doing something that on the production very, very quickly, you can actually check out the master branch and notice the part-time student is actually gone from my working tree altogether because now I'm on the master branch. But if I want to go back on the part-time student branch, I right click here, check out revision, and click on checkout, and notice my part-time student class shows up again in my working tree because now I'm on the part-time student branch. So let's go ahead and we're going to push this branch to GitHub. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to remote and push. And what we're going to push, that stays the same. But now we're actually see which branches that we can select to push. And I'm just going to choose the part-time student branch. I don't want to push to the master. Sometimes you might not want to push to the master. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on next and click on finish. And now we see, go to our GitHub, and let's go ahead and just click this again. And notice now we have actually two branches. Now, if we take a look at which branch, we have part-time student branch and we have the master branch. So we can see both branches here. And if we click here, here's our part-time student branch, and we notice that we have the part-time student.java. But if I go back to my student list and look at my branches and look at my master branch and look at my student list, we notice that it does not have that part-time student. Oh, one thing I forgot to show, sorry, this actually showed up on my other screen. So you definitely always want to set up the tracking between the remote branch. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yes. It actually popped up on my other screen. So notice now that we see this here as well. Okay. So let's just do one change on the branch. Let's go back to our student list and let's look at the branch. Let's go to our other branch, our part-time student branch. And all I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to here's my part-time student, and I'm going to edit it just to show you I can edit it here as well, on the branch. And here I'm actually going to do, what can I do here? Let's just add the date. Let's see, Jan 2021. And I'm going to go ahead and just added the date. Okay. And now I just click on commit changes. And let's go back. So this is a little bit of a review. We already did the fetch, but let's go back and see how it works with the branch. So now I'm going to go here to remote, and I'm going to do a fetch. And we're going to click on next. And now notice it sees that there are the two branches now. So we're just going to fetch the part-time student. And notice here we still have the same thing, same symbolism here, the minus, the down arrow 1. So we're behind by 1, and here it says it as well. And if we want to get it into sync, we do the same thing we did before. We would actually click here, and you have to be on the part-time student branch, and it's bold, so we're currently on that branch. And we right click here, and we want to merge revision, and we're going to click on merge, and notice right away it said in sync. And if we open up our part-time student, we have our date there as well. Okay. And was there anything else I wanted to show you? If you wanted to change something, added something here just to say this is done. And then you hit save. Then what you would have to do to upload this is to push. Notice now it's been modified. So what the steps we have to take, right click, and we're going to do git commit. Yeah, it's on the screen. And I'm actually going to commit it here, and I just say added a comment. And I'm going to click on commit. And so now it's committed. Notice now it says we're one ahead of the remote repo. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to do another, oh, where's the push? Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry. We have to do a push. Okay, let's go ahead and do that push. And let's go to here, and we're going to go to team. And again, there's more than one way to access. There's the Git, and you can do, the remote is off the screen, so kind of doesn't make a lot of sense for me to use it there. But you can access, a lot of these tools are available in different locations. So we're going to do team, remote, push, and I'm going to click on next. And I only want to push my one branch, okay? And I'm going to click on next and finish. And then we're going to take a look at what that looks like on GitHub. Let's go ahead and click here to refresh it. We'll look at the second branch. We'll look at our part-time student branch. So now we're on the part-time student branch, and we can see there are 7 commits. So let's go ahead and take a look at those commits. And we see, notice, because this branch branched off at part-time student, it had everything up to and including added the date in terms of commits. But now this one has additional commits that the master branch doesn't have. So the first one was we added the part-time student, and then remember we added the date here on GitHub, and then we fetched it, then we merged it, and then we added a comment on our local repo, and then we pushed it. Okay, and you'll see here if we go back. Let me see if I can just go back this way. There we go. We'll see here that it says this branch is 3 commits ahead of the master. Okay, so that's about it for this video. It's over half an hour. And again, what we wanted to show is just some basic Git manipulations using the, so we saw how to create a Git repo. We saw how to, how files were added. We added a git.gitignore file. And we saw how we committed those changes to the local repo. We saw the local repo was a hidden folder by default in our project. And then we saw how to make some changes. We saw how to revert a commit, but not losing the change. And we also saw how we could push this to a remote repo, GitHub. And then we saw how we could do some changes on the remote repo, and then use fetch and then merge to bring it back into our local repo first, and then into our working tree by using the merge. And then we saw how to create a branch. We saw how to create a branch and how to commit and how to push a branch. And we didn't look at reverting branch, but it's the exact same thing. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps. Take care. And comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.